Well, when we first conceived of this day, the very first thing we did was go looking for people to collect oral histories. Oral histories are a way of preserving firsthand accounts of our recent past and provide perspectives of how people who experienced events that will someday pass into textbooks. We're still collecting oral histories. If you are interested in giving your own account of experiences at Dorothea Dix Hospital, write to us at livesonthehill@gmail.com. That's livesonthehill, all one word, at gmail.com. We also have a phone-in memory line where you can call up and leave about a 5-minute memory if you want, and that number is 919-659-5684. Get your pens. It's 919-659-5684, or a mnemonic is 659-LOTH for Lives on the Hill. So without any further ado, I'd like to show some excerpts from our oral histories that were gathered over the course of the summer. We have 6 folks who agreed to be on film. We have at least one of those people here, and we have our videography team who's worked so hard on this aspect of, they've been driving around the state for months, emailing, phoning, and contacting people, and going out to their houses and taking some films and asking for their memories. So without any further ado, some excerpts from those oral histories.
My psychotic vision of Dorothea Dix was this place where you went where women wore white cotton dresses and drank hot tea on the front lawn. And when I got there, that's not what Dorothea Dix was like at all. Dorothea Dix was not like that.
And a lot of people think that Dix is like, hospital beds, but it's not like that. It's jobs, activities.
I grew up somehow knowing about Margaret Sanger and Dorothea Dix. I have no idea if I was given books, biographies to read about them when I was young. They were just sort of real people to me from early on. And so the idea that there was one of the state hospitals that she had actually designed here was always a little extra draw for me.
In history class, studying about Dorothea Dix, they gave the idea that patients ran around in their diapers and and that people were confined to hospital beds, and it's not that way. And it's talking about the fact that people are, Dorothea Dix being an insane asylum. I don't believe that.
The hospital is just the first part of what's going to be a lifetime journey for most people.
Dix was a good place. It had psych residents, it had quality psychiatrists who supervised psych residents, who had clinical faculty appointments at UNC. Patients got good care. It was still an institution, but it was good.
We were always proud of the treatment that patients got at Dix, and we Dix employees always thought that Dorothea Dix gave the best treatment of any of the 4 mental hospitals in North Carolina.
Because of our location where we were able to do a lot more things with patients than the others. And because Faye MacArthur was she could get stuff from people. They went to Memorial Auditorium, to the plays. They went to games at Duke and at Chapel Hill, at State. Our patients got out a lot.
We would have classes. We would have sometimes, not that often, but sometimes we would have a class, or a technician or a nurse would lead a class on something.
We were fortunate at Dix to have these 2 huge dining rooms in McBride Building, and so one of them we used for a treatment hall. And The other one we used for like an activity area. I mean, they were huge. I think they used to hold, at one point, Dorothea Dix had 2,800 patients.
I remember we went to the North Carolina Art Museum on an outing one time, and that was a really big deal. I had not been to the art museum in years. Those were good things.
We got to do a lot of things at Wright Building. We would work our money to raise money. We would have bake sales, and that money would go to beach trips and camping trips. I mean, it was like a world within a world at Dix.
One of the things that we did in the adolescent unit is we'd have a meal. It was a big meal. They'd cook a pig, and I know I made the biggest mess making macaroni and cheese. You should have seen me. I mean, I made a pot this big of macaroni and cheese to take up there. And we would invite the legislators to come. And everybody would eat together. And then the kids would get up and perform for which was great. Because some of them were very talented.
I knew of several second, third generation families working at Dix. And it was with the people living on the grounds, and it was just teamwork and a big family. And I just really felt like that went away, of course, along with the hospital.
Well, I loved when I worked in Kirby Building. It was built in 1910, and it was called the Colonies because Kirby had male epileptics and Council Building had female epileptics. I loved working in Benner House. That's what we called it. Because we were right near the tennis courts, and the patients could come and visit us, and we had a cat. And and we had this huge kitchen. So it was a great place for students.
There was a commissary. We would go over there sometimes. You could get snacks if you were fortunate enough to have money for snacks. A lot of people didn't have money. On the ward, activity was limited. People, of course, were borrowing cigarettes from one another. Some people were borrowing clothes from one another. You would have this one room that was called the TV room, and you weren't allowed to have lighters because that was considered a weapon or something that could be hazardous. So there was this box on the wall that you would go and stick your cigarette in and push a button and it would light it. And so there was, that room was the most popular room. That was the room where most of the women that were on the floor would be. But there was another room in the back of the ward that was a non-smoking room. And in that room you might find women doing puzzles.
When the cafeteria was functioning, it used to be take your family to the cafeteria after church on Sunday. Because back then they charged the raw food cost. I remember, for example, getting a little steak and a baked potato, and I think it was some salad and tea for 98 cents.
The patients had jobs. Like when I was in Kirby Building, one of the ladies would go to McBride and get the mail because we had our own post office in the hospital, and would go get the mail and bring it back. Well, then, sometimes do-gooders don't really do anybody any favors. So they said, well, you can't, unless you're paying them minimum wages, you can't do this. Well, they weren't worth minimum wages, but it gave them something, some of them were, but it gave them something to do that made them feel like they were worth something. And I remember how upset this lady was. She was older, and how upset she was when she was told that she couldn't pick up the mail, that it was abusing her.
When I was there, we had a dairy farm, and we utilized a lot of the residents there to work on the farm, and they really enjoyed it. I mean, we had a dairy farm, they milked the cows, they brought in the hay, they actually had truck cars where they grew stuff, and then some and I don't know if any of these peripheral people that were involved in what happened over there, but suddenly it was in the paper that Dix was exploiting their patients by having them work out in the sun, and all these patients that were actively employed doing something worthwhile were now relegated to the boob tube and smoking in the day room.
I was there during the years that we used to be able to smoke on the units, staff and patients, and the years. And I was actually the one, because I was vice president of medical staff and got to write a letter to whoever was secretary of health, and where he wrote me back that it was a right to smoke. Patients had a right to smoke, and we couldn't limit it.
I picked up the baton to make our hospital smoke-free in 1978 because I saw the adverse effects of cigarette smoking, especially in regards to patients that were not even smokers. But we didn't go smoke-free until 1995.
My kids were young, I would bring them onto campus and let them swing on the swings and let them talk to people that had passes to be wandering around. There was one person that scared them a little bit, and they called her a witch. She sort of looked a little bit like a witch, the way she dressed and her hair was. But otherwise, they just, grew up seeing them as, it's too bad that they're stuck in the hospital.
They had a lot of different kind of patients there. In the talent shows, they really did have a lot of top talent. So there, everybody has their problems.
I like to deal with the most difficult. They're the most challenging because they're the ones that push you to think really outside the box and look at what is driving the patients to do this.
I'm not going to say it's number one hospitality. I won't say that. The people there, the different kind of people there. I mean, not just doctors, social workers, and nurses, but like the preacher, the lady that was putting up the linens each morning. I'd help her out. She was neat. The technicians, I really liked the technicians, and I liked them a lot. They seemed to help. But just the average person there that's working there, they were very neat, well-kept people. And I like that. I think that's what kept me going.
Perhaps one of the biggest things that happened in my years at Dix, the bigger and bigger push to get patients out of the hospital as soon as possible. And when they set up community health centers and started sending patients that way, along with the long-acting medications, that's what started emptying hospitals.
I like to think that many of the years that I was there, which was late 1980s and all 1990s and then 2001, were some of the best years of Dix. A lot of the people who could be managed outside of the hospital had been discharged. What was left at that point were people who really were having a hard time managing anywhere, along with being the short-term unit for Wake County, mixing the longer-term population and the very acute short-term population from Wake County was one of the large problems.
Now, you know what all is on Dix land, right? The entire Centennial campus is on Dix land. And that was Hunt in his first administration. The farmers market is on Dix land. I-40 is on Dix land out there. So, it was a huge campus.
Dorothea Dix should have been, developed into a community for the mentally mentally ill. And ultimately it should have been a mecca and a place that the mentally ill, you know, all of it should have been there. NAMI should have been up there. Um, you know, there was lots and lots of housing could have been built up there. You know, they could, just like they're doing farms now for veterans, farms for people in recovery and 12-step programs. They go to these farms and work. They could have built farms like that up there for people with mental illness to do work in. Um, you know, people could have gone out and worked in the community and come home and lived on the grounds of Dorothea Dix on nothing more than the precipice of being mentally ill. But that's okay because that's their place in the world. That's where, you know, they could have, school could have been introduced there. There could have been, you know, a technical school or something for people with just mental illness. Because a lot of times people with mental illness, when they go to school, like at a tech school here or whatever, they're not going to relate. They're going to have a more difficult time.
We made things get worse quicker and more difficult. I mean, it was to be a true public sector psychiatrist in this state during that decade and watching the services fall apart was very devastating. Many of the good community psychiatrists left the state during that time. Their reasons for doing reform were good. There were lots of problems overall. How they chose to implement it was not what our patient population needed.
You know, because of therapy and because of medication, I understand more of the process, but it doesn't make me happy with it. And Dix is another example of that. Dix, closing Dix, I don't think that shutting Dix down was the answer.
I felt then, and as I feel today, even more so, it was the biggest mistake they ever made. And the reason was because all of those patients had primary caretakers, and I don't remember ever having a psychiatric patient that didn't have some underlying medical condition. And when that medical condition decompensated, I knew them well enough. I'd recognize it.
Oh, I was crushed because I will tell you that the person that was head of the DHHS, she had come and told us that they would not, they were going to build a new Dix at Dix. And then changed their minds.
When I heard the hospital was closing, immediately apprehension that the patients would just not get the help that they needed if they closed the hospital. Because I was also convinced that the community would not step up and take the slack when the hospital was closed. And so far it hasn't.
Taxpayers are paying for people in Raleigh to be toted to Cherry Hospital, where, you know, the history of Dix is right here, and it was an educational center. And, you know, being the original, I think that with the technology today, that it could be used better.
Other patients that had been there much, much longer than me, from the time I was originally there into the 2-year span that I was in and out, they were always there. Where they went, I don't know. My guess are group homes. You know, my guess, some of them, I wish I knew, but because of the way that the system works, it doesn't encourage that, and it encourages that you don't, you know, you don't know that. You know them while you're on the ward, but unless you get their phone numbers and follow them afterwards or whatever, and I didn't do a lot of that.
And some patients get on ACT teams and are followed very, very closely. But there's so many other people that just fall through the cracks these days in terms of getting the outpatient care that they need that could keep them stable.
It was a place that took me in when nobody else did.
I have a tattoo now, but you have a different tattoo when you go to Dorothea Dix. You have a mental tattoo that stays with you for the rest of your life. You just learn to live with it and to deal with it and not to allow it to intimidate you anymore.
I would say that Dorothea Dix's legacy was the effort of the employees to give the best treatment that they could.
I was a very inverted person. I was very tremendously inverted. I probably wouldn't have been able to hold this interview with you before Dorothea Dix. Thanks to Dix, thanks to psychotherapy, thanks to all the processes that I went through, and the work that I did. I can talk to people now. I have a voice.
I could talk for hours if there's anything. I mean, I love Dix. Dix was a great place. I feel like there was a heart and a soul to the hospital as well as the whole thing. And I assume that that's a lot of what you get from people that you interview who are interested in talking about it now. There were families that worked there for generations.
I have always criticized the statement of it's good enough for government work. I always took that as a personal insult because all of the people that I worked with worked as hard as they could and did the best job they could. And I think that's the legacy of Dix.
Lives on the Hill is a production of UNC-TV in association with North Carolina Health News. Funding for Lives on the Hill is provided by the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV. Additional funding is provided by Dix Park Conservancy, NAMI North Carolina, the City of Raleigh, Health Decisions Resources, and by the following.